Hello again. So I am going to give this a few moments for people to be able to rejoin. Okay, I'm going to take a few deep breaths now. Ah. Welcome. Welcome. Thank you. All right, the chat is working. That's a good thing. Um, Technology, uncertainty. We are all in this together. Hi, everybody. Welcome back. So there's only a few people on here, so I'm going to give this a few more moments. Hello. Please do say hello, just so I can get a sense of who is here. I know that there were a lot more people on the previous one than there are right now, at least what I'm seeing. So I want to give people a chance to reconnect here. Hello, hello, hello. I hate it when things don't work the way they're supposed to. And I hate it because it stresses me out and I have no control over it. And while I'm not necessarily a control freak, and I certainly don't like to control other people, things like this that are supposed to work and they don't work, they stress me out. Okay. So I don't know at what point the previous one ended. If somebody could let me know where I think it ended. I had asked you, I walked you through a whole breathing exercise, and then I started talking about kind of checking in with yourself. And that's when it told me that there was a problem. So I don't know if you guys were still on at that point or not. If somebody could maybe let me know what the last thing you heard was. Because I don't necessarily want to go through the whole thing again, but I feel like I do want to just kind of ground back into this space. So maybe we can just take a moment to breathe. And I'm going to take a breath too, because honestly, this does stress me out a lot. So let's just breathe. Let's just take a moment to take a nice full deep breath. And breathing out. And I am intentionally breathing out through my mouth because when there's a lot of energy going on, breathing out through your mouth actually can help release some of that. Like when there's this intensity of energy, and I'm not feeling really intense, but when there is this kind of intense energy moving about, taking a nice breath and breathing slowly out through your mouth can help release that energy a little bit more than if you're just breathing through your nose as you're exhaling. So, all right. A nice breath. So, welcome back, everybody. Thank you for being here. Quit breathing. Okay, sorry, quit during the breathing exercises. Okay. Well, hopefully it recorded. So I guess that's going to be kind of just a nice breathing exercise on its own for somebody to watch. But as I was kind of moving through that, I had suggested, if it feels comfortable to you, to maybe keep your eyes closed, because I want you to take a few moments to check in with yourself. And if our eyes are closed, it can be a little easier to do that. So I want you to check in with yourself and really ask yourself, how am I? Beyond just the, oh, I'm fine. I'm okay. It's not that bad. I'm looking on the positive side. There's so much to be grateful for. All of those things are fine and good. But it's so important to check in with yourself and really connect and honor how you're feeling. So, taking a moment now, how are you feeling emotionally? You can feel gratitude. You can feel optimistic and still feel scared, still feel lonely. How are you feeling, really? Sometimes acknowledging the truth of how we're feeling, especially when there is fear involved, can feel a little overwhelming. But denying it doesn't make it go away. It just keeps it. It keeps that energy very present. And so, no matter what you're doing throughout the day to distract or deny, it's still there and it's very easily touched on. Are you finding yourself feeling more easily frustrated or down, annoyed, or panicked? There's a good chance it's because there's some feelings under the surface that, whether intentionally or not, you might be having some difficulty acknowledging. And that's something that everybody struggles with to a certain extent, depending on the circumstances. But when you check in with yourself and ask how you're doing, really, you're honoring that. And in that honoring and in that acknowledgement, you're giving it space to release. It's kind of like having all this pent up energy in I can't think of what that thing is called. Clearly, I don't cook much. A pressure cooker. um, like all that energy is there. Denying it doesn't make it go away. When we can acknowledge that it's there, when we can acknowledge that to ourselves, it opens the valve some so that it can release a little bit. So it's really important to check in with yourself. How are you feeling physically? How is the stress affecting you on a physical level? Where are you noticing tension? Is your jaw clenched? That used to be something I did all the time. Are your shoulders really tense and feeling like they're up in your ears? So just take a moment, let them release. Did you notice, like, really just kind of let them release? Fall away from your ears, open your mouth, let the tension from your jaw relax. If you happen to be somebody who holds tension in your jaw, maybe you even have TMJ, holding your tongue at the roof of your mouth, doesn't have to be for very long, can help release the muscles in your jaw. That practice really, really helped me a lot in TMJ issues. So checking in with yourself. Where are you noticing some tension, some fear or uncertainty? Maybe even some rapid heart rate or some butterflies somewhere. Breathe into that space. As you inhale, just feel the air move into that space and circulate around. And as you exhale and that air comes back through and out, bringing that energy with it. Maybe even exhaling through your mouth, letting it all go. When we are in a place of stress, we tend to, because this is a natural way of coping, and we learn this very early in our lives, when we are stressed, we tend to disconnect from what's going on inside. Either we just kind of get numb, or we tend to focus on external things. I'm sure you can relate to that. And it serves a purpose, and there's times that that's actually quite helpful. We need to be able to do that at times. But when we're trying to feel better, physically and emotionally, especially if we're trying to heal, it's so incredibly important to not disconnect, to honor what's going on in your mind, in your heart, and in your body. Okay. Actually, I'm going to go ahead. I do have some tips. This particular video, we're 10 minutes in. I'm going to go through some of the comments right now. Often I wait until the end, but I want to go through some of the comments now because I think that some of you are responding to the questions um, that I asked. And then I'm going to give you some things to keep in mind as we navigate this time together. So again, hello everybody, and thank you for joining and then rejoining. I'm not sure what happened. I hope it doesn't happen again. So some fear, being at the at-risk population. Becky, yeah, this is, and I think it's bad enough to know that within yourself and just recognize that, okay, I'm in this at-risk group. It's one thing to notice that within yourself and have the concern around that. But in so many places, in this country anyway, it seems that people, and I think it's a form of denial, and we know that denial is a very strong way of coping. So many people are taking it so casually and cavalierly, actually, and thinking about, well, it's just people of a certain age. And for those of us who love people and care about people of a certain age, what the hell difference does that make? It really is incredibly arrogant, dismissive, and hurtful. And I'm trying to find some grace, I guess, for people that are using denial in that way right now. But it's not helpful to those who are really fearful and concerned about their health or the health of those that they really love and care about. Moods are fluctuating all throughout the day. Yes. And I think that that is the case for so many people. And part of that, I think, is the uncertainty. And I'm going to talk a little bit about how to mitigate some of these things. Can't make them all go away, of course, but there are some things that we can do to mitigate it. So I'm going to talk about some of those things. Trapped and claustrophobic. And then feeling guilt because you're not kind of on the front lines. I'll talk a little bit about that too, coming up. The trapped thing, I think it's natural for everybody in this situation when you're told that you shouldn't leave your house or you can't leave your house to feel trapped. But the reality is, for people that grew up in environments as children that was abusive or even just really chaotic, and you couldn't escape, right? Where were you going to go? There was no place to go to get out of it. All of this, even if you're not consciously thinking about it, even if on a conscious level there's no reminders, there's nothing specific about it, but particularly if you haven't done all the healing that you need to do, this is a huge trigger, a huge familiar feeling of being a child and not being able to escape really difficult situations. And that could be true for an adult who has been in a situation similar where they couldn't escape or something like that. But it can feel very familiar. And I think for a lot of people, they're not connecting that, or they want to deny that. And so tell themselves that they're not really trapped, and it's a way of just avoiding it and minimizing to try to cope. But that just really ends up increasing the anxiety around it. But this is definitely, even it's definitely something that is creating difficulty for a lot of people, and even people who are introverts. And I'm somewhat of an introvert. I'm not a complete introvert, but I am definitely have a lot of introvert characteristics. But even for people who like being on their own, like being at home. It's very different. It feels energetically and psychologically very different when you choose to be at home. When home or being alone is where you feel safe and are re-energized. When somebody else tells you that you have to stay home, it feels very different. It is very different. And so therefore it can feel very familiar. And it's so important during this time, and I'll talk about this a little bit, but it's so incredibly important to be able to honor the truth of how you're feeling. And again, I will. I've got some things. I've got some things written down so I don't forget, specifically to talk around some or about some of that. So I will do that. Yes, the positive energy wherever you can find that. Continue to check in with it. Um, Feeling tired, sat in the grass away from everyone. Yes, I'm going to talk a little bit about that too. The importance of that. I'm glad. Depressed with an elephant on my chest. Yeah, I'm not. This is not. I'm not actually kidding about this, but like obviously for a lot of people when they're feeling anxious or depressed or sad or grief actually too, you can feel a lot of pressure in your chest area. But I'm just going to say this, I'm not a doctor, but I know that that's one of the things that I've heard is a symptom of this virus is feeling kind of a constriction in pressure, like the ability to take a full breath. So hopefully that's not the case. Hopefully it's just maybe how you tend to react generally if you're feeling kind of depressed or anxious. Um, Painting, yes. Lots of good things that we can be doing. Grinding your teeth in your sleep, yes. I used to do that all the time, and I didn't even know that I did it. My husband actually told me, and he said it was incredibly loud, and he was surprised it didn't wake me up. He didn't know how it couldn't wake me up. And before that, I never knew that I had a problem. um, Scared for the people I care about, but not for your own health. Well, I hope that you're concerned for your own health too, because your health matters as much as anybody else's. But I know that fear that we can have for other people, even if we can't feel it for ourselves. Really practice the tongue exercise. So, literally, just being mindful of putting your tongue at the roof of your mouth and holding it there, because it's pretty, I don't think it's impossible, but you have to work at clenching your jaw while your tongue is at the roof of your mouth. So if you concentrate instead of putting your tongue at the roof of your mouth, then your jaw will relax a bit. Um, Drink water. Yes. Yes, definitely take it easy. Lots of great things, and I'll be talking about some of those as well. Yeah, having to go to work, and thank you for being there so that we can get the things that we need, or at least mostly the things that we need. It is scary, and the thought that there are people who are still having to go to work, and whether it's in the health field or in grocery stores, or even the restaurants that are still open, and I'm grateful that they are open for delivery and takeout. Whether they should be or not, I don't know, but um, it's just, it seems like why can't we have at least masks, if nothing else, for the people that do have to be out there working, who are working to help the rest of us get through our days and to eat and to be healthy and well. And I'm sorry that you don't have what you need for anybody who is out there, whether you're on the front lines in terms of taking care of people's medical and emergent needs, or working in a grocery store or trucking industry or whatever it may be. Thank you for all that you are doing. Because can you imagine what it would be like if we did not have those services available to us. Um, have to send in workers to be with the kids. Yeah. There are a lot of people who are still having to work that we may not necessarily be thinking of. I'm a social worker, and a social worker, um, National Social Worker Month or whatever. I don't know what it's called. And most people don't think of social workers, or if they do, they think of the people that go in and take children away from their parents, which is not accurate. Most of those people are not social workers. But many, many, many social workers are still doing the work as well. So thank you to all of the social workers out there who are still present, and having to show up in the physical space of those that you're supporting and helping. And that's true for all people who are in doing the work of helping care for other people. Sensory overload. Virus free. Good. Good. Ashley, I'm glad to hear that. Um, okay. So let's talk a little bit about um, some tips. So some people have shared already some things, and I've kind of briefly talked about it, but I want to just kind of spend a little bit more time maybe going into a little bit more depth as well. So one of the things, and some people thrive on spontaneity, um, and hate schedules, and just really, really do better with flying by the seat of their pants, so to speak. But even for those people, when you don't have the freedom to be as spontaneous as you would like to be, the circumstance that we're in right now can have a significant impact on our sense of autonomy and control over our own lives. For those of us, and I am one of them, who really enjoy, or maybe not even, maybe you enjoy. I don't know that I necessarily enjoy, but I definitely am a creature of habit. I feel better when I have a routine and I'm able to stick to that routine. It just, I don't know, things just flow much easier for me. So for those of us who have routines, for most of us, I'm sure our routines are kind of out the window, for lots of reasons. So I think even for those who tend to be spontaneous, because your level of spontaneity is going to be quite limited right now, making sure that you can incorporate as much normalcy to your day, to your week, to your life, whatever, incorporating as much as you can during this time is going to be really helpful. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of things that aren't going to be part of your normal routine. But even sleeping and going to sleep and getting up at the same time can be one of the things that you do. So maybe you're not going into work. Maybe your schedule has changed considerably if you're working from home or whatever. But trying to maintain that schedule can, especially because your body reacts to that, can actually go a long way. Eating on your regular schedule is another way that you can incorporate some of your normal routine to just help your body kind of still feel a sense of normalcy. If you tend to get together with somebody or a group of people on a particular night for something, maybe you join virtually. So the things that you typically do on a Wednesday or at some point in your week, trying to find a way to incorporate that can help reduce some of the anxiety and uncertainty. And it does that by creating stability. So while a lot of other things may be crazy, and completely out of the norm, whatever you can do that is part of your natural routine can help create stability. Um, so that is important. Another thing that you can do, um, in part because we don't know how long this is going to go on. And some places in the world have a little bit more freedom than some other places. Some places in the US have a little bit more freedom than some other places. I happen to live in Arizona where there are a lot of stores, like retail type stores, I think that are still open. Salons are still open. I actually had an appointment yesterday that I really, really wanted to keep because it's been a long time. Um, like really long time since I've been, and I've had that appointment scheduled for like 2 months. Um, and I canceled it because it just didn't seem to make sense to me to go. But anyway, I digress. Um, so during this time, whether it ends up being a couple of weeks or longer, finding a way to maybe begin to incorporate a new routine into your schedule. Um, and I'm going to talk a little bit about self-care and stuff in a little bit. So some of that might be some things that you might incorporate into a new routine. So you can do a daily routine. You can also think about, okay, on Wednesdays, I'm going to do this, or Saturdays, I'm going to try to do this, or something like that. But just, especially if you're a creature of habit, thinking about a way that you might be able to create a new routine. As you navigate this time where you're staying in and not doing things that you typically tend to do. Another thing that is absolutely imperative during this time is to make sure that you are staying connected. And I think that connection is always important. But during this time, because there is so much uncertainty and fear and isolation, even if you're at home with your family and you have a big family, or you live with roommates or whatever, it can still feel very isolating to not be able to be around the people that you're normally around. Even coworkers that you may not even necessarily enjoy that much. But when you are made to not be around them, it just feels different. Psychologically, it is different. So staying connected is absolutely imperative. So I suggest finding a way to connect with somebody daily outside of whoever you may be living with, if you're living with people. That can be a text message, it can be a Skype call, whatever, however you want to do that, but making sure that you're connecting with people outside of your home every single day. In this time, most of us, like just the time that we are in history, we don't talk on the phone that often, right? We might do some video chatting or we text. It's not that common for us to talk on the phone to people anymore. And in many ways, I think that's unfortunate. So I would actually encourage you to try to connect and hear the other person's voice. And if you have it available to you, connect on video. So you're not only hearing their voice, you're seeing their face. And you can connect so much better when you're able to see one another, when you're able to hear their voice and the inflections in their speech. So at least one person every day, even if it is just messaging, at least one person. Because if you don't, everything that is going on around us is going to impact you, and I can guarantee this, is going to impact you much more significantly than it would otherwise. And whether that's just the anxiety because of the uncertainty, or all that can be brought up if somebody that you love becomes infected or you become sick. It's going to make it so much worse if you're isolating. And of course, hopefully, the people that you are sharing a home with, you enjoy and you love, and things are going well. But the reality is, when people are stressed, especially if they don't know how to manage that stress or they're in denial about their stress, it people can get on each other's nerves a lot easier. So that's important to keep in mind too. So we need to have connection with people outside of the people that we're sharing space with. I think also doing a group virtual call can be really helpful too. So whether it's a family group or a friend group or even a coworker group, um, or people that you've met on Facebook or whatever, being able to connect virtually and just saying, "How are you doing?" can be really beneficial too. And you can do that. You can connect groups of people on Skype. You can connect groups of people on Zoom. Um, I don't know how many people for their free version, but there's Google. I forgot what it is now. It used to be Google Hangouts, Google Meet, I think it's called. I think you can do group video calls there. So there are a lot of free options to be able to do that. So I encourage you to make sure that you're doing that. Um, so both of those things that I just talked about, the routine and connecting, are part of overall self-care. But I wanted also to specifically talk about some things related to self-care that are really important to keep in mind as well. So, first and foremost, again, I'm repeating this because it's this important. Do not isolate. Please do not isolate. It really does make everything feel so much bigger. And if you're somebody who tends to kind of struggle with connection anyway, the more removed you are from people, the longer you are removed from other people, the harder it is to re-engage. So please, please, please do not isolate. Briefly brought this up earlier, but I want to talk about it here a little bit more fully. Honor how you feel. So at the beginning of this video, I talked about checking in with yourself and asking yourself, how are you really doing emotionally, physically? Honoring how you're feeling on both of those levels is really important. One of the things that happens generally, but especially now, is that people will feel something, they'll struggle in some way, and minimize it by saying, well, other people are struggling too, or other people are struggling a lot more than I am, or different things like that. That is a way to minimize our own experience. And we do that in anything that we might struggle with. But when we are very aware of this global issue, and we know that there are people who are dying, we know that there are people who have to be out there and do not have the protection that they need. They're having to leave their own family so they don't risk infecting their families if they should get sick, because they're serving the people who need their help. Yes, those people are on the front lines and they are maybe more at risk, or, well, they are probably more at risk. But you can't dishonor by comparing how you feel You can hold, you're capable of honoring how you feel and recognizing that there are people who are having to face this on a very real level every single day. You can honor that you're feeling lonely. You can honor that you're scared. You can honor that you're afraid of getting sick, even if you're the only person living in your home and you haven't seen anybody for 2 weeks and you won't for another 2. It's important to honor how you feel, no matter what that is. Comparing yourself to other people is not helpful. It only serves to be a reminder that you don't matter, or at least you don't matter as much as other people. And that's what we're trying to heal from, because you do. Yes, it's possible, or maybe even likely, that other people are struggling with more things, or what they're having to face every day is maybe more than what you're having to face every day in terms of meeting other people, or having to interact with other people, or potential risk, um, people that don't have the necessities that they need or whatever. Yes, there are people who may be struggling with certain things more than you are. That in no way negates your reality. I am very fortunate that I have the life that I have. I am very fortunate in so many ways. But I can still feel frustrated that somebody screwed up the work that they were doing in my house, and now I have to have my brand new floors replaced, and because of that, I have to be in a rental. Remember me saying that I am a creature of habit and I like my routine? There's nothing routine about being in a rental with mostly none of your things, in a very different environment around me outside. It's frustrating. It's unsettling, might be a strong word, but I certainly don't feel settled. Does that take away from the concern or the admiration and the gratitude that I have for the people who are out there? The sadness for the people who can't get the medical care and the testing that they need? It absolutely does not. I can feel all of that and honor that my life is a little stressful right now. And that's important because in honoring that within myself, instead of saying, oh my God, you're so lucky, you shouldn't be feeling this way, what's wrong with you? If I were to say that, I would feel even worse. I would feel more unsettled. I'd feel guilty. And that would keep me from being able to be as fully present in my work. It would keep me from being able to feel happy, because I can feel happy and grateful and connected while still honoring the stress, the frustration, the disappointment that I feel. I would much rather be doing this call from the serenity and the I don't know what the word is I'm looking for, kind of just knowing what my surroundings are. I would feel much better if I were doing this in my own home office with the things that make me feel good around me. Instead, I am sitting at a dining table that I feel like I need a booster seat for. This chair I'm sinking down into too far in it. I really do feel like I need a booster seat. And is it the end of the world? No. Are there much bigger things going on? Absolutely. There are even much bigger things going on in my own life than feeling frustrated that I feel like I need a booster seat. But that doesn't change the fact that when I sat down to do this video and thought about connecting with all of you, that I just had this moment and I thought, "Ugh, I wish I were home." So we do have the capacity to honor what is going on within us and what is going on outside of us, what is going on for the people around us, those that we know and care about, and those that we don't. It doesn't have to be either or. It never does, not just in this time. But we don't learn that. So try to take that in. Honor how you're feeling. Because when you don't, when you compare yourself to other people and think about how much worse other people have it, you're telling that fearful or hurting part of yourself that he or she doesn't matter. Um, made a couple notes about that, so I just want to make sure that yeah, okay. Just want to make sure that I had everything I wanted to say about that. So another way to take care of yourself is limiting your exposure to the news and social media. I think that social media has a place that can help us feel connected, especially if you're in groups that are supportive, people that aren't necessarily talking about everything that's going on. Um, so that can be good, but really limiting just the kind of mindless scrolling that you're doing on social media, um, and how much you're watching the news. It is important to be informed. So I'm not suggesting that you don't pay attention at all, but especially if you're somebody who's feeling really anxious, if you're seeing the numbers go up and it's creating more anxiety or panic for you, maybe just check in 1 to 3 times a day with the news. So maybe in the morning, after you get a nice cup of tea or coffee or whatever it is, check in. Make sure that you're getting your news from a place that most people would acknowledge is trustworthy. Um, look up whatever it is that you're wanting to know, but don't spend too much time on it. Please don't spend too much time on it. Maybe you do it at the end of the day, maybe not at the very end of the day, not right before you go to bed, but maybe in the evening, a couple of hours before you go to bed. And then if you feel that you really need to know what's going on, maybe once in the middle of the afternoon. But exposing yourself to, even if it's very accurate news reporting, or you're seeing very accurate articles show up in your newsfeed, being immersed in almost anything all day long is usually not a good thing. So try to be really mindful of that. Um, I do think it is important and helpful to have a space where you feel like you can share your thoughts and concerns about what's going on. I know a lot of people say, well, I don't want to burden somebody, I don't want to make them more stressed out or whatever. And this is where a group might be really helpful, because you know that that is a space created to be able to share, or maybe specifically even to share about what your concerns are um, during this time. So limiting your exposure, but also making sure that you have a space to be able to share what's going on with you and whatever concerns you might have, I think is also important. Um, Another thing that I think can be really, really helpful right now is listen, read, and or watch things that make you laugh and smile. So maybe it's a funny YouTube video. Um, Maybe it's a comedy, a movie, or a series. Um, One of the ways that you can connect with people, and I haven't checked, I don't know if this is just in the US or not, but Netflix has a thing right now where you can watch with other people, and have like chat there with it, so you can be like virtually watching with somebody else. Um, but taking some time and doing something that just can help distract in a very healthy way and make you smile and laugh. That is really important right now. And that isn't taking anything away from the people who are stressed out. It's not taking away from the people who are not feeling well right now, even the people who are on ventilators right now. It doesn't take anything away from them. What it does is help nourish your soul so that you can continue to send positive thoughts to them. It nourishes your soul and your heart so that you can be there and connect with the people that you care about and who care about you. It's not selfish. It's necessary to take care of yourself. Um, Another thing, um, so these are just kind of things, what I've said so far are just kind of general things to keep in mind that you can do. I think there are some things that you might try incorporating on a daily basis. Certainly, those other things can be daily as well. In fact, I guess they are kind of, yeah, actually, I guess they all are daily as well. Because I definitely think laughter every day can be really good for your soul. Um, some other things that I think are really important is are intentional breathing. So every day, you know that I talk about this all the time. And now during a time of stress, this global time of stress, it's even more important because it's we're feeling our own stress, but we are also experiencing energetically the stress of everybody around us, the people that we're actually in physical space with, or even the people that we're hearing about. And really, even just knowing that the whole world right now is stressed and fearful. We can feel that. So, taking time every single day, maybe even multiple times in the day, to do intentional breathing can really, really benefit you and those around you. Um, so, intentional breathing can be just a few deep breaths. It can be the breathing similar to what we did the first round, take one of this live, um, where you're really deliberately taking deep full breaths and you're breathing in something that would nourish you and you're releasing things that you'd like to let go of. But just being really mindful about taking a few deep breaths throughout your day, starting your day, like from the moment you wake up, before you I was going to say stretch. It doesn't have to be before you stretch, but before you start planning your day, before you start worrying about something, before you get out of bed, just lay there for a few moments and take a couple of deep breaths. Just breathe in fully and exhale. One way to do that without your mind wandering is to count your breath. Um, as you inhale, just counting 1, 2, 3, silently to yourself. Otherwise, it's going to mess up your breathing. But just count so that you're focused on the breath. Maybe even at the top, after you've inhaled fully, holding it for just a second, and then exhaling, either at the same pace or maybe even taking another count or two to exhale fully. So, even just doing 2 to 3 breaths like that can make a difference the more you practice it. So, throughout your day, maybe doing that, but certainly starting your day, ending your day that way, taking a few moments if you feel particularly stressed out. if you've just bitten somebody's head off, or you feel like somebody else just bit your head off, taking a few deep intentional breaths can really go a long way. Another way that you can do that is meditating. Now, so you can do it in meditation, but you can also meditate in other ways as well. So, meditating really ultimately just means being present in this moment. In this moment. Because the first time I said it was that moment. This is this moment. 2 seconds from now will be that moment. So, whatever moment you are in, meditating helps you be present with it. And there are so many different ways to meditate. You can do it for a few breaths. You can do it for an hour. I am not somebody who can meditate for an hour. I'm still practicing. But I can't do it for an hour. I'm lucky if I can do 20 minutes solid. It's a challenge for me to do beyond that. There are lots of ways you can meditate. It really is just about being present. There are some apps that can be helpful in trying to meditate. Calm app. Sorry, I made some notes. Headspace is another app that you can download. I think they're both paid apps. There's another one, Insight Timer, I think, is another one that you can download. But then there are also a lot of meditations on YouTube. So clearly you have access to YouTube. So you can do a search for meditations, or if there's a specific kind of meditation, you can do a search for that. But there's lots of meditations on YouTube. And I also, if you have been a member of my community and you signed up quite a while ago, you've probably got access to some of the meditations that I've done that I shared with you for free. So you might want to go back and find those. I don't have those available like on my site or anything anymore. I do have a meditation album that's available. So you can go to my site and look for that if you want. But there's lots of opportunities, lots of different ways that you can meditate, which brings me to the next thing that can be really important. And somebody brought this up earlier. Connecting with nature is always a really good thing. And I know that right now we might be somewhat limited in terms of our access to being outside. But if you can be outside, getting outside and connecting to nature, even if it's just for a few minutes, but ideally maybe you could go for a walk. Doing a walking meditation can be really, really beneficial for so many different things. But especially right now, because it's probably going to be a little quieter, less energy around you from other people, less traffic noise. Doing a walking meditation on your own can be really, really a beautiful way to be present and connect within. And again, there's lots of free resources out there for that. Another resource for meditating is John Kabat-Zinn. I'll make a note to come back and share links. None of the stuff that I'm sharing, by the way, do I have any like connection to. I don't earn money from it or anything like that. What was the other thing? Oh, I mentioned my meditation. Obviously, my meditation album, I do get financial benefit, I guess, from that. But there are a lot of other free resources out there. So you absolutely do not need to get my album. But connecting with nature, especially when you feel trapped, is important. keeping in mind whatever local guidelines you have, keeping in mind distancing from other people, but just getting some fresh air, breathing fresh air is really, really, really important right now. Um, so please do that. And when you're outside, and this is kind of a form of meditation without you having to think of it as meditation, but when you go outside, whether it's on your front porch or your back patio or going for a walk, being really present, feeling the warmth of the sun on your skin, listening to the sounds around you, the birds, the breeze, the airplanes. There was just one that flew over. Noticing the quiet. Maybe you're typically outside and there's this hustle and bustle and street noise and people noise. You might notice it's a whole lot quieter right now. So just being really present with what's going on, the sounds around you or the lack of sounds around you. Feeling the breeze, the temperature of the breeze, noticing how it might create sound around you in the leaves or blowing something around you. If you are inside, if you're not able to get outside for whatever reason, looking out a window and just trying to imagine yourself being out there. So, like if you can look outside and you see bushes blooming or trees blooming or a flower blooming, recalling what that would smell like. If you see kind of in the distance a coffee shop or a bakery and you walk by there generally and you know what that smells like, looking out at the distance at it and recalling what that smells like. Maybe if there is a fountain or a stream or a river or something near you, looking outside, even if you can't actually see it, just kind of thinking about where you know it is in the distance and connecting and recalling, what does that sound like? All of those things can be helpful. I know that I shared a lot of different things, so you can come back and watch this on replay. I hope that at least something that I've shared has been helpful, that you've been able to connect with and are able to use in the coming days, weeks, possibly even months. And actually, I do hope in the coming months and maybe even years, because while I've created this as a result of this global pandemic that we're experiencing, the reality is that everything that I've shared here can be applied to other things too, because no matter what we're struggling with at any given time, there are globally likely hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people, maybe even tens of millions of people who have struggled with that too. So even though globally we may not be talking about the same thing, the reality is that at any given time, whatever you're struggling with, there are a lot of other people who are struggling with that same thing. So pretty much all of the things that we've talked about can apply in those circumstances as well. So I am still going to go through comments and everything, but I just want to take this opportunity to thank you for being part of my community. Thank you for continuing to inspire me every single day in this work that I do. Thank you for motivating me to show up on days when I'm feeling maybe a little disconnected. Because when I show up with you and we connect, It inspires me, and I feel motivated, and I feel connected and energized. So thank you to all of you for being part of my community for however long you've been here. Maybe we're just meeting for the first time, or maybe we've connected. I don't even remember when I started my channel, 2013, maybe. Um, Maybe we've been connected for a really long time. I'm grateful to have you here. All right, so, okay. Some friends share about others being negative, and that can make it difficult to share. Um, that's really unfortunate. Um, but the reality is that there are a lot of people that don't have the capacity. And that's not like a negative judgment about them, but that is the reality. A lot of people do not have the capacity within to hold struggle. Um, Not only other people's, but often in that situation, their own. And so they just choose to be positive. Um, and I, as a mental health professional, I don't know that I would really call that choosing to be positive. I think it's a way of coping that can be beneficial in some ways, but can also be detrimental in some ways as well. Um, so, in that circumstance, I think that you could take it as an opportunity to educate them, that it's not being negative, that it's being real. um, Obviously, I feel strongly about that kind of thing, but it may be a situation where those just aren't your people right now. Maybe finding another person or a group of people that do have the capacity to hold struggle and also hold the ability to laugh and to find gratitude. Because we do have the ability, each and every one of us has the capacity to hold both. We have to learn, we have to practice getting there because we're not taught that at all. Most of us are actually taught to only be positive, which is not helpful actually in the big picture. Um, but maybe those aren't the people to share with. And that is a reality in a lot of people's lives generally, that there are going to be people that you care about and even care about you who just don't have the capacity, the ability. Um, Not that they're weak, but in a way, it does take strength to be able to sit with struggle. And some people just haven't strengthened that muscle yet. Um, Nervous about going back to work, tested negative for the virus. Oh, but positive for the flu. Um, and you still have to go back to work? That just seems kind of crazy. If you come into contact with somebody, they're going to get the flu. And then they could still also get this virus, which is going to make it even worse. Oh my goodness. Well, I'm glad that you're negative for the coronavirus, but I'm sorry that you have the flu, and it's just crazy that you have to go back to work. Oh, yeah, Allison, yeah. I think the same kind of probably, or I think probably applies. Yeah. The reality is, and I was just having this conversation this week. I'm not remembering right now which conversation it was. Um, but when people are, so here's the thing, you hear me say all the time that we are all wounded, right? The reality is that the majority of people are in denial about their wounding. So they don't recognize that they're wounding or wounded. um, However, that doesn't mean that they're not wounded. People who are in denial about their wounding are more affected, impacted by their wounding than generally than people who are aware of what their wounding is. So the majority of people who do not recognize that they're wounded or in denial about it or whatever, think they healed it and they didn't, those people are often the people, going back to the previous thing I said, who don't have the capacity to sit with struggle because they're in denial about their own wounding. And if they sit with struggle, theirs or somebody else's, they can't be in denial as much anymore. So instead, they completely avoid it. So oftentimes, the people that we see kind of being judgmental, um, being harsh, not wanting to hear anything negative, quite often, I would say probably most of the time, by far, um, they're in denial about their own wounding. They're in denial about their own struggle and impact, which is part of the reason why it is so important to be able to honor how we truly feel. But because we are all wounded, we all struggle. When you are in denial about your wounding, you tend to be in denial about your struggle. So, and how we struggle might look very different. Somebody who is a perfectionist and only thinking positive is struggling just as much as the person who is afraid to leave their house and feeling really depressed. It just looks better because that's what society expects, because that's what we've been taught to do, to pick ourselves up and go on and look on the bright side. But those people internally are struggling just as much, if not more. But it looks better because there's this idea in our societies that that's what strength is. Big isolator here. Any advice for re-engaging with people? So if you've kind of already disconnected, because again, once we kind of pull back, it's harder to re-engage. I think just recognizing, first of all, that we are all struggling in some way with all of this. And so I think one of the best things that you can do, one of the easiest, not that it is easy necessarily, but one of the things that you can do is just maybe send a casual message to somebody and saying, hey, thinking about you, how are you doing? And just kind of start in that very casual way. If it's somebody that you've been kind of communicating with a little bit, asking how they're doing, like letting them know how you're doing. You might even want to share, this can be a way to kind of bring up a conversation that might be a hard conversation to bring up, but you can say, I was just listening to something or watching something or I read something or whatever about just how isolating this can be, or how much stress we can feel without really recognizing that we're feeling it, and the importance of connecting with others. So I thought I would reach out and connect with you. I know that seems like a lot of people might roll their eyes at that or whatever, but it really can be a great way to get a conversation going, to give that person space or even permission to acknowledge how they're feeling, right? By me talking about the reality that we're struggling, by me acknowledging the different kinds of things that we might be struggling with. Not that you need permission, but it just very naturally and casually gives you permission, each and every one of you, to say, yeah, I'm struggling. Or, yes, that's how I feel. It gives you a space to be able to share how you're feeling. So when we can presence that with other people, it creates opportunity to not only build connection, but to create opportunity for a conversation, to share how you're ultimately really feeling instead of just the really surface stuff. I'm fine. How are you? Which is what we typically tend to do. So I think that's probably the biggest thing. If you are engaged in any social media groups, that can be a good place to practice some of that re-engagement. But isolating is absolutely what we don't want to be doing right now. Well, anytime, really, but especially now. Oh no. Dealing with an aunt in the hospital, um, who is one of those people that is more at risk with heart failure, congestive heart failure patient, and not being able to have visitors. That is one of the things, honestly, that is really scary to me. Um, I have children that live pretty far from me, they're grown. Um, one of them in New York City, one in Illinois. Um, and thinking about one of them getting sick and not being able to travel, um, or them not being able to get here, them ending up in a hospital and not being able to have visitors, and that was that was the thing that was weighing on me the most. Um, and it's heartbreaking to think about that. And I wish that there was something that I could say to ease that. Um, I think the most important thing, it's making me feel emotional just thinking about that, because even though my son from New York is here with us now, and my other son is still in Illinois, but there's family, people that he loves there. But just knowing about all those people that are alone and don't have the people that they love with them is heartbreaking. Um, so there's nothing that I can say to take that away, but really honoring how you feel, being able to honor your fear and your sadness while also recognizing that you can hold that and feel for them as well, and know that you're not alone in this. I feel like it's not my area of expertise. I don't know that I would be the right person to lead it, but I feel like there should be like a global virtual group for people that have people who are sick, and not just with the virus, but are sick in a hospital and you can't go visit them. Like even people having babies during this time, and the fear around even contracting the virus, and fear like not being able to go, and your partner's having a baby, and are you going to be able to be at the hospital during that time? Like that's something that we definitely take for granted, and I don't know actually what's happening with that right now. I think most hospitals are not wanting visitors under any circumstance. So a lot of things um, that have really dramatically impacted the way that we live our lives and the things that we tend to take for granted. Another person who isolates. Yeah, it absolutely magnifies all the negative things that we're holding on to. Going to the river, it helps. Yes, anything that we can connect to in nature, like literally just looking at, hopefully you've got some living things around you, depending on where you are in the world. I know it's still pretty chilly in a lot of places, but hopefully there's some growth or evergreens or something. But just letting yourself really see the color, the texture, the sound makes such a big difference. Focusing on my breathing makes me anxious. My breathing and heart rate speed up. Is there an easy way to fix that? Thanks for this question, Kelly. You're definitely not alone. Um, so, what I would say for that instead, I think it is something to practice, but maybe now isn't the time to practice it. But I think that you can get to a place because it is important to be able to take full deep breaths. Our systems need that. But in the meantime, instead of focusing on breathing, I'm really glad that you brought this up. So instead of focusing on breathing, focus instead on something around you. Maybe again, something in nature. Maybe focus on something that's in your physical space that can kind of just bring a sense of calm or a sense of ease, something that maybe you feel a nice connection to that feels kind of loving or peaceful, uh, something that can just help you connect with something that feels good. And if you're doing like the breathing exercise or something, instead of focusing on the breath, as you're looking at that thing or as you're listening to something, you can just say to yourself, ease, taking in a sense of ease, letting go a sense of fear. So you don't necessarily have to connect it to your breath as I did it. You can just say the words. I'm taking in the feeling of ease. I'm releasing the feeling of anxiety, or I'm taking in calm, releasing fear. Like you can just say that without having to do it in combination with your breath. If you're out in nature, just focusing on the sights, the sounds, the smells without connecting it to breath. So that's what I would suggest right now. But I think ultimately being able to work on connecting with your breath and practicing so that you can take in some nice full deep breaths without it creating anxiety is ultimately pretty important. Uh, Allison, thank you for saying that. Yes, some good essential oils. So even with the breathing or difficulty breathing or not, essential oils can be really, really helpful too, especially if you're staying inside. If you've got some oils, and you can still order things online. Um, if you've got some oils that are that kind of help bring the outdoors in. So some citrus scents, or I don't particularly like flowery scents, but flowery scents if you like flowers. Um, Lavender is going to be a really good one that can actually be beneficial to help calm your system as well. I'm not an essential oil expert, so I don't want to give too much information, but I do use them as well. You can diffuse them in your space. If you have any sort of breathing issues, though, sometimes essential oils can exacerbate that. So just be mindful of that. And there are a lot of reputable sites out there that can help you know which ones to stay away from. Um, so essential oils can definitely be very helpful. You're very, very welcome. I'm glad it feels that way, Mia. Nervous about my studies. Do not even know if I'm getting my degree this year. Yeah, that is definitely something a lot of people are struggling with. And again, some people might minimize that and say, there's a lot of other things going on in the world or whatever. But when you have worked really hard, whether you're in high school or in college or postgraduate, when you have worked really hard for something or planned for a long time for something, I'm really glad this came up. This goes back to the comparison thing. When things that are out of your control may cause that not to happen, it can bring up a lot. It can feel really frustrating and disheartening and a lot of other things. It's really important to honor that, whether it is graduating, getting married. My son the other one that's not here right now, actually, the one that's here was going to come anyway, but the one that isn't here, he was going to come and visit with his new family for the first time, next week, and he is not coming. Um, and I am really disappointed in that. I know he's really disappointed in that, and they're really disappointed in that too. And is it the end of the world? Absolutely not. Is it still really disappointing? Absolutely. Am I sad that I'm not going to see him? Of course. Um, and it's important to honor that for all of us. So the fear around something not working out, I hope, and obviously every state is different, every country is different, but for something like your studies, it seems as though most organizations, most governments are finding a way to kind of work around that. So hopefully those things will, it may take a little bit longer, but hopefully those things will still be in place and there will be kind of a community to kind of help everything get back on track. For those that have had to cancel vacations or weddings, those kinds of things, that is really challenging too. Hopefully, certainly with flights and stuff, they are typically waiving fees and all of that, but like a wedding venue, like if you have secured a wedding venue or a caterer or a photographer, like a lot of those are small businesses. And I don't know what's going to happen in those circumstances. So there can be a lot of financial loss. There can be a lot of certainly unknowns in what that's going to look like, because you plan that way ahead in advance and the venue is probably already booked up. Photographers are booked up. Catering companies are booked up. So there's a lot of things that are really unknown right now. And that can be really difficult. Now, again, there are people dying. Postponing a wedding in the scheme of things may not seem like a big deal, but to you, it is. You have planned this for a long time. You've put a lot into it, a lot of energy. Other people maybe have already made all of their arrangements. Trying to rebook all of that is not going to be easy. So honoring whatever that is for you is important. You can hold space for that and fully acknowledge that you're healthy, that the people that you love are healthy, and that there are people who are not. We have the capacity to hold all kinds of things at one time. I told myself I would go within while I was unable to go out. It's harder than I thought. Yeah, and this is interesting. I'm seeing a lot of people talk about, okay, I'm taking this opportunity to learn a new language online, or to clean my house, or whatever. And for some people, they may be able to do that, and that's great. But for a lot of people, because of the uncertainty, because of the additional stress and anxiety it's creating, it's not quite that easy. In fact, you might feel even less motivated, less inspired, more depressed, which is going to make it challenging to be able to do those things. And when we are a little bit more isolated, when things are a little bit more quiet, it naturally kind of just naturally causes us to connect a little bit more within, which is why for many people, their way of coping is to go without, like outside of themselves. So they stay busy, they're social butterflies, they are perfectionists, they're workaholics, whatever it might be. But that is a way of coping for many. And when you don't have the ability to do that, at least as easily, you find that there's a lot that you've been avoiding or distracting from. So again, not isolating is really important. How do we develop resilience in the midst of all of this? Well, I think first of all, recognizing that, especially if you are a childhood survivor of abuse, that resilience is already within you. It has been within you all along. But the truth is that we all have a level of resilience within us. We are born with resilience. I think it's much about not so much having to create or build resilience as it is connecting to the truth of that resilience within us. So being able to recognize that we have it within us already, that we have the capacity to get through whatever is going to come our way. And again, if you've lived through a lot of really challenging things in your life, especially as a child, you absolutely have the capacity to get through this. Because no matter what this brings to your life, it is not as bad. It is not as difficult. It is not as traumatic as being a child and being abused, being isolated in that way and having to survive day to day, especially if the person doing that was somebody that you should have been able to trust. So that resilience, that strength has always been within you. Trying to acknowledge that, letting yourself really connect within and own that. That has always been within you. And it is there now. You may not feel it. You may not be able to believe that it is there. But there's no denying it. Like there's really no way to say it's not and for that to be true because you survived. And the truth is we all have the capacity, we all have that resilience to get through this. It's not easy. And it absolutely will not be easy if you've lost your job, if you lose things that matter to you because of the financial aspect of this, if you lose people that you love, it will not be easy. But you already have the capacity within yourself to get through this. And reminding yourself, this is one of the things that is, it's kind of weird to think of it this way, but going through something as a global collective helps you recognize, because you see it everywhere, right? None of us are getting through this on our own. None of us are dealing with this on our own. Every corner of this globe and everywhere in between is affected by this in some way or another. Even if it's not prevalent where they are, they might have family somewhere else. Knowing that we are all in this together, that we're all dealing with a lot of the same fears. When we connect to that reality, it can help ease some of that sense of isolation and strengthen our connection to one another. My brother has cancer and has been in the hospital for over a month. Oh, no, that is heartbreaking. You know, I don't know if this is, I know that you can get on the internet in a hospital. I wonder if, obviously, if everybody's trying to get on the internet, that's not going to work. But I wonder, are the hospitals having opportunities for virtual connecting with people? If not, they need to do that. I'm sure that some people are somehow, But that is absolutely so. For any of you who have somebody in a hospital setting that you can't go visit, maybe contact the hospital and see if there's a way to do it virtually. Um, Fellow isolators, yes. And here we are, isolators unite. And in this moment, in this space, you are not alone. And that's really, really important and helpful to recognize that every single one of us in this space, even those who end up watching this on replay, we're all in this together. Yeah. I think that I've gotten through. I think that I have gotten through all of the comments or questions, I guess. Um, so thank you so much for being here. I know that I haven't been present here sharing videos with you since the beginning of this year, especially. Um, and even on social media, I haven't been very present. I've I have a group that I'm doing right now. And like I said, there's been kind of a lot going on in my life this year. Nothing bad. We are healthy. Just a lot of different things going on that have not been in my control. Hopeful that in the coming weeks things will settle down, even aside from the virus that we're all dealing with out there. Just the things that are going on in my personal life, I'm hopeful will kind of settle a little bit in the coming weeks. So some of that stress will be gone. I will be back home in my home, even though it's not complete yet. Um, it's part of my routine. It's part of just where I like to be. So that will help reduce some of my level of stress. So I will be looking forward to connecting with you more regularly. One of the things that I've actually had on kind of on the back burner, so to speak, is once all this stress kind of dissipated a little bit, is wanting to be more present here with all of you on YouTube, because I know a lot of you are not on social media. So I'm looking at the possibility of creating, I don't know how frequent it would be, but an actual schedule for sharing videos, probably live videos with you, so you know when to expect me to be here. And it would be a commitment on my part to make sure that I'm showing up, because I have issue with commitment. And part of that is about control. Um, but I do enjoy connecting with you. So that is something that I am considering. But either way, hopefully over the next few weeks, as things calm down, I will be connecting with you more regularly. Jody, I'm sorry that this has created so much fear for you. Um, I wish that there was something that I could say that would ease that for you. Um, Unfortunately, there just really isn't. But please know that not only are you not alone in your fear, but that we as a community um, are here as well. And one thing that I will say is that I hope that you are taking good care of yourself, that you are being really mindful about not being too close to people, that you are taking care of the nourishment of your body, because that affects your immune system and your level of stress, which affects your immune system. Um, so doing what you can to take care of yourself, to stay as healthy as you can. Doing some of the things that I mentioned today can help a little bit. And again, don't isolate. I think that that's going to be one of the most important things. No matter what fear somebody might have, please do not isolate, because no matter what it is that you're struggling with, it will absolutely make it worse. I feel like I can guarantee that no matter what it is, that isolating will make it a lot worse. No exceptions on the visitors for hospitals and no shortage of blood because of canceled blood drives. Um, yeah, this is something that I've been hearing a lot too. And honestly, in my own community, I don't know what the status of that is. I'm assuming if salons are open, you can still donate blood. Um, but yes, thank you for bringing that out as well. That is something to think about. And I often can't give blood because I can be anemic sometimes. Um, but that is definitely something to think about. So, those of you that are healthy and can donate blood, if it feels okay to you, maybe check um, online and see if there's some place that you might be able to donate blood as well. Um, oh, I'm so glad that it feels helpful. And I'm sorry, I have no idea how to pronounce your name, so I'm not going to even try. But thank you for being here. Um, you're welcome. All right, so let's take another deep breath together, breathing in the connection that we've experienced here today, breathing in the calm and the peace, and exhaling all the fear and uncertainty, the loneliness, taking in all the goodness and releasing all that energy that is creating stress. Thank you all for joining me. Please take care of yourself. I will send positive thoughts and Reiki healing to all of you that are a part of my community. Take care. Until next time, everybody. Bye.